Good morning, my intrepid and forethinking friends. Welcome. This is the SitRep for today, which is the 29th of August, 2022. I am Stuart. This is Ragnarok Survival. And this is the SitRep situation report where I go through news stories from, today from the weekend and pick out a few things. There was a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline, a lot of really important stuff that's happening in the world, and I'm not going to cover anywhere near all the things that I probably should. A little bit earlier today, and it's going to be a little bit quicker, hopefully today. I've got work on a little bit later, so going to just punch through it today. I hope you're well. Thank you very much for all those who are listening or watching either on Instagram, on the YouTubes, or on a podcast where I'm being beamed directly into your ear holes. That's enjoyable, isn't it? All right, let's jump into it this morning, and we'll start in Australia. Australia, mate. China's harsh reaction to Australia's new B-21 stealth bomber. So this is being reported on news.com.au. The origin of this was last SitRep that I did. I talked about this was actually sent to me by one of my sources, my main source, through the Instagrams, who sent me a story about the US being asked if Australia could potentially take on the B-21 stealth bomber. Now, the actual answer to that question in the press conference was not definitive in any way. Well, I didn't read it as definitive. I mean, there was answers in there like, yeah, totally, they could get it. But it wasn't like, yes, we are sending B-21 stealth fighters, bombers, to Australia in order to curtail the Chinese threat. All that was really said in this report, the original report, was if they needed it and it made strategic sense, then that would be an option that we would probably look at. And that was enough. And we all knew that was enough for China to blow up. So we waited 24, almost 48 hours for an answer. And boy, did we get an answer from China. Damn, they have spat the proverbial dummy all the way across the room and stamped their feet and started waving their arms in the air like a 2-year-old having a tantrum. Essentially, what they've come out and said is something akin to, well, they've labeled it a serious threat, quote unquote, a serious threat. And they have said allegedly that, I mean, I don't speak Chinese, so I can't verify any of these reports. But allegedly they've said that their latest offering could be used to bomb Australian bases. That's some pretty serious words that's coming out from China. Right, you're going to get B-21s. We're going to bomb your bases. And I don't, considering what their capabilities are, I don't disagree with that in principle, that they probably could bomb our bases. I'm sure that China has that ability. I'm more than sure that they have that ability to quite a great extent. Anyway, that's what's happening in Australia today. That's some interesting news. Although it's not really that huge news in Australia, I'm noticing. I mean, this was on news.com.au, and it is quite a big story, but it's not to the size that I thought it would be. Yeah, so that's an interesting one. Peter Rouse says Mandarin, not Chinese. Yeah, correct. Okay, so let's slide over to Pakistan now with their floods. What's happening? They're having huge floods at the moment, catastrophic flooding continuing to happen. Some of the numbers coming out of there, we've got 30 million people displaced, 300 plus children among 1,000 dead, 1,343 people injured, 500,000 houses damaged, and up to 800,000 livestock deaths as well. Which, it's interesting to see these numbers that we've got 1,000 people dead, 800,000 livestock deaths. And the fact that that's being reported as well is an interesting one. Again, like tying into the whole food system catastrophe that we're experiencing right now and that we're about to experience in 6 to 12 months' time, when a fairly sizable chunk of human beings on the face of this earth cannot feed themselves. This all ties into it. And obviously there's a human effect as well. I don't want to disregard that from the Pakistan floods, but a lot of pain, a lot of issues going on there at the moment in that part of the world. Not much going on in the media about it though. And these are like epic floods. I've been watching some of the video footage of these floods, and it's huge floods, like torrents, rivers that are just destroying cities, wiping roads off, like just gone. The kind of stuff that picks up cars and just flicks them away like they're Lego trucks. Kieran on Instagram says, Australia is full of Chinese people already. It's not going to take a bomb to finalize plans. Maybe. There was another story about how China is starting to militarize or utilize their expatriated population out in the world in all sorts of places. I mean, to a certain extent, that's pretty regular. That's what a lot of countries have done historically. However, if we also look at it historically, a lot of expats in other countries haven't necessarily taken up the call to arms. There have been some, but generally speaking, if we look back on it from a historical perspective, people who live in another country, if war is to actually happen, don't generally, they either go back, repatriate themselves back to their original country, or they actually stick with whatever the country they are in on their kind of side, I guess. So, who knows what's going to happen there. But there are a lot of Chinese people everywhere because there are a lot of Chinese people. That's the fact of it. And Peter Rouse correctly says that, remember, the Chinese people are not the CCP. That's one thing we do need to really remember in all this. It's like this whole crackdown on Russia as a whole. I thought it's very xenophobic in its application, where we're like, no Russian should leave Russia. All Russians are bad. Punish Russia, punish their companies, punish the people. And it's like, well, hang on. Is it Russia? Is it the average Russian that's actually like, yes, let's invade Ukraine? I'm sure there are some who are for it, but there are probably quite a number of people who are like, I don't really think we should be doing this. I don't agree with it. And now they're just kind of caught up into the meat grinder that is war. And we could potentially see that with China as well. So I think that's something, we need to consider as well. That there is a proclivity at the moment in our world to dichotomize. That is to say, there's a trend at the moment to be this, and if you're not this, then you're bad. You're the opposite and you're bad. Doesn't matter. You are on the left or you're on the right. You are pro-gun or you're against gun. You're pro-abortion or you're against abortion. Whatever it is, whatever the contentious issue is. And that's not really the way I see the world personally. There is nuance. There is a spectrum, and there are gradations along that spectrum, and they need to be appreciated. We need to look at those gradations from a more nuanced stance, for a more nuanced perspective, and go, okay, I understand that there's more than just this and that in the world. There's more than left and right. There's more than black and white. There's more than this and one thing and the other thing, on and off. It's a very binary sort of system that a lot of people are pushing nowadays. Anyway, moving right along, let's jump into Bangladesh now. They are in a state of almost collapse. They're following suit with what's happened in Sri Lanka at the moment. And I've said this before, the subcontinent is in for some hard times. We're seeing some huge weather effects in Pakistan, some huge weather effects in India. We're seeing total collapse within Sri Lanka of their economy and their government. We're now seeing Bangladesh doing that. Bangladesh also is getting weather effects on a large scale. Pakistan's government is, cracking down authoritarian after having a little coup happen there. They're possibly on the edge of civil unrest on a large scale. So the whole subcontinent area is fracturing. It is in a state of quasi-collapse, I would put it. Each country's got its own issues. Each area has its own issues. But on the whole, it's not looking good, except for India. India is actually looking good in some spheres, like economically. They look like they're doing relatively well. Resource-wise, it looks like they're linking in with Russia a lot harder now and buying up a lot of Russian resources. So it looks like they might fare very well. Manufacturing and forward-thinking, demographics, India is also looking well. So India could really become a powerhouse from this, and potentially also could step in and help out some of their neighbors here, but that remains to be seen. So we'll see what happens there. But hungry people in Bangladesh on the hunt for politicians. This is something we're going to see more. We've seen electricity cuts, fuel price increase over 50%, huge inflation across the board, millions of low-income households in this country. And now they're hitting the streets, they're protesting, they are hunting down politicians. And we saw that in Sri Lanka. We've seen that in a number of countries, actually, of late. And I think we'll see more of that as we move forward. Let's jump over to the Middle East now. Iranian bases, military bases, have been targeted and destroyed, allegedly, by Israel Air Force. So Israel has flown in and destroyed some Iranian bases hiding under the Russian air defense umbrella, and have destroyed them. So they're printing this news in Israel, saying, "Hey, look at what we've done. We're so good. Look at how powerful we are." This, to me, marks. I mean, this is a continuation of what should probably be considered a war at this point now. And I've said that before, but everyone else from the outside sort of looking at it and going, "Oh, there's a bit of conflict going on there. It's no, nothing really. Let's just keep your eyes on Ukraine. Let's just concentrate on Ukraine or Taiwan. You want to see some Taiwan action? Stuff happening here." For some reason, this is being downplayed a lot, but my consideration of this is that it is a war that's going on here, and this is a bit of a jump up now, bit of a step up in the Middle East now. So again, a bit of a fractious point, a bit of a flashpoint that's going on in the world right now. Something else to keep your eyes on. Also, something else to keep your eyes on, what's happening between Turkey and Greece. They have not been friends of late, or ever really. Maybe even since a little book called the Iliad. But Turkey, Greece, historically have not been very close. They're close geographically, but they've been butting heads, and they've been doing it a lot lately. And they've been ramping up their military. So Turkey's just come out and accused Greece of hostile actions against their jets. So Turkey, I think, had some F-16s that they were flying around, and Greece on one of the islands, maybe Crete. Yep, Crete, actually got a target lock on some of those F-16s flying around. That information gets funneled back to Turkey. I mean, the jet fighters would know that. And so they've come out and said, "Hey, why are you target locking our Air Force assets? What's going on here?" These are two countries inside of NATO, by the way. Just wrap your head around that again. And I keep talking about this outside look that everyone has, especially down here in Australia, where we kind of look over at Europe and go, "Oh, Europe's just this, lovely place they're all together and they're all doing the same thing. It's all good." And then they got the EU, and then they got NATO, and it's all great, isn't it? There's a lot of infighting and fractious sort of portions of these conglomerates. Peter Rouse says on YouTube, "Remember, Israel claimed Iran was weeks away from producing nuclear weapons over 20 years ago." They've been saying it for quite some time. Is Iran making nuclear weapons? We don't know. Is Iran still working on it? Because possibly they have created a system there where it doesn't benefit somebody from being actually at the higher echelons of the science levels. And so, it's what we would call a brain drain. And maybe they don't actually have the capability to do it. But all indications show that they would like to. And from even not looking at Iran itself, if you just look at the situation that they're sitting in, it would make strategic sense for them to try and build nuclear weapons. But Israel has also had a very aggressive, some might say overly aggressive, military stance for a number of years now. Okay, Poland. Let's jump over to Poland here because there's some interesting stuff about energy, the energy crisis in Europe, which is being shown particularly in Germany, Poland, Austria, Italy to a certain extent as well at the moment. People are apparently sleeping in their cars just to stay in line for coal to heat their homes. That's pretty horrific. The people are spending allegedly days at a time in their car to queue up to buy coal in order to burn in their own homes. Like, that escalated fast. We've all been sort of looking forward and expecting this kind of issue to happen in winter in Europe, and it's happening right now. We're seeing it unfold right now. Imagine, like, we're not even really in autumn yet. We're coming into autumn, or they're coming into autumn. And so we haven't even really felt what the effects of an energy crisis are going to be on people who are going to actually need it to survive. At the moment, hot weather, extreme hot weather, you can still survive without electricity in hot weather. All right. But extreme cold weather, people are going to die. And already people are lining up to buy coal. This is not pointing to a great place over there. From that perspective, if we're looking forward, we're looking at disaster and emergency preparedness. We're looking at how can we heat ourselves? How can we keep ourselves sustained in this sort of way, in an energy sort of way? How can we produce our own energy or create and harness our own energy? And these are the sort of things we need to think about now. Whether it be getting ahead of the curve and going, hey, do I have a wood fire heater? Do I have access to wood? If I do need to utilize coal, can I get a store of coal up? Rather than being a part of the herd, being caught with your pants down or behind the 8 ball, and then having to spend days at a time in your car in line waiting to buy coal. This is the sort of stuff as a prepper, like, terrifies my nightmares. I'm just like, it doesn't really actually. I have nightmares about all sorts of other weird stuff, but it's not about buying coal generally. But this is the sort of thing where I go, okay, this proves to me that this can happen. Poland is not a developing country. Poland is not like the third world or anything, whatever you want to call it. It's not a poor country. It's not struggling to keep itself alive. Poland's not rich by any stretch of the imagination, especially not in the perspective of Europe, but it is not bad. And the fact that the people in this country that's right up against Germany, one of the richer countries in the world, the fact that people are lining up to buy coal right now, that should show you all you need to know about what's happening in the world and where we're trending at the moment as a society, as a civilization. Peter Rouse, more on this, the Iran-Israel stuff. Iran has had inspections, yet Israel refused to allow inspections. Israel was also caught attempting to sell nuclear weapons to South Africa. Yes, I've talked about Israel's nuclear capabilities in the past, how it's this whole game that the entire rest of the world plays, where Israel says, we don't have nuclear weapons, and everyone's like, yeah, yep, Israel doesn't have nuclear weapons, we're sure. We're not going to check, but pretty sure they don't. They said they don't, so that's probably enough for us, isn't it? Yeah, that's cool. And then Israel comes out and says things like, "Hey, we'll wipe you off the face of the earth if you do this against us," to countries around them. It's like, well, how would you do that? Do you have a nuclear weapon? Yes. Germany now 50% of crop loss due to drought in some regions. They're looking at, again, sugar beets, potatoes, soybean crops. Probably afford to lose soybeans, to be honest. I don't care. Maize, also known as corn. All due to lack of rainfall. We've got other things tied in here as well. We've got prices of fuel, fertilizer prices, but also fertilizer being produced as a huge number of European fertilizer manufacturers have shut down in the last 2 weeks, or have signaled that they're going to shut down in the past 2 weeks. So prices have obviously skyrocketed. Pesticides have also increased. Personally, I don't like the use of fertilizers or pesticides anyway on the stuff that I eat. But if you want to look at it from the perspective of keeping humans alive in the short term, then you're going to kind of need that stuff. And that's the harsh truth of the matter. Or we could just get everyone to start growing their own food. That's gonna change things up dramatically, as people don't really have time to do that, or knowledge or resources in order to do that. So looking down the barrel of a lot of deaths coming our way, not our ways in Australia. I think we're going to actually be pretty fine down here. The other thing that's going on in Germany, but in Europe as a whole, is they are currently, because of the heat, because of the drought, they are burning through their animal feed. That's animal feed for winter. So in Europe, times are plenty, are your summer, your spring, your summer, you grow, you've got abundance, you harvest in autumn, you store things and feed your animals and, store food for winter. And then you start the whole cycle again. If nothing's growing in summer, or if everything's destroyed from drought or inflation or Putin or COVID or, whatever you want to blame, then, fast forward 6 months coming into winter, that stuff's not going to be there. Not being able to feed your animals. They're struggling to feed their animals now, and so they're going to burn through all this crop. Not being able to feed your animals means animals die, which means there are no more animals for people to eat. That's going to be quite an issue. Aluminium also. We're seeing aluminium. Aluminium, I've talked about this in the past too, but we've seen another producer cut its production by 50%. This is on top of at least two that I know that have signaled that they're shutting down. I think one shut down and one signaling that it's going to shut down. And a number of them have said, hey, we've got to scale right back. Aluminium, or aluminum, if you are one of my American listeners, aluminium, aluminum. I wonder what is the correct way to say this, actually. This has bugged me for a while. Aluminum, because if you're going oo in the o, in the u, sorry, at the start, and then the other one is a. Aluminum or aluminum, aluminum, There's no y in there. This is a very Aussie thing. Yeah, aluminium. Anyway, aluminium producer Spira GmbH is considering cutting production at its German smelter of 50% of total capacity in response to surging energy costs. Now, aluminium is one of the most, if not the most, I'd have to check that, but it is absolutely up there with one of the most energy intensive resources that we have to manufacture, to produce, to get to aluminium, to get to refined aluminium, to actually make it as a product. It requires a huge, like a bucket load of energy to do that. So if energy prices go up, aluminium producers just go, can't do it. This I can't express how huge this is. Aluminium is not just your freaking cans of soda. It's not just your tinfoil wrap. Aluminium is in everything. Everything requires aluminium. That you cannot fly a plane without aluminium. You can't build a plane without aluminium. It's not like a boat where you can build it out of steel and put it in the water and have buoyancy somehow. it has to go in the air. Steel's too heavy to go in the air. This is one of those things, one of those key pieces of technology, an advancement in technology, aluminium, the production of aluminium and lightweight aluminium, that has kind of shot our progress as far as technology goes as a society. If we don't have that ability, we will regress. We're going backwards in time at the moment in so many different facets in our life at the moment. But this is a huge one. We're going to go back to the 50s, going to go back to the 30s. All of a sudden, we're going to go back and it's going to be like, hey, we can't really produce planes anymore. So people can't fly around the world. So if you want to get across the world, it's going to take you 3 months to do it on a ship. Oh, hey, those cars that everyone's driving around in, can't really have them anymore. They're going to be bigger, slower, harder. Oh, but we've banned fossil fuel. So we're going to need electric batteries to run them around. Oh, hang on, this is not adding up. There was actually an amusing to me story in, I can't remember where it was actually, but you more conservative-minded people, not conservative, that's the wrong way to put it. You're more environmentally minded people. So your left-wing people have just cottoned onto the fact that lithium is horrific. Pulling it up out of the ground is bad. It pollutes and it's very, very bad shit, right? Lithium is not great stuff. And they're going, this is horrible. We're polluting the world. We've got to stop this lithium thing. And everyone needs to get off fossil fuels and buy cars. And it's like, I can see this thing like crashing together. It's like a slow-mo train wreck that I'm watching where they're going, lithium bad, we need electric cars. And you're like, at what point are they going to figure out that lithium is utterly, utterly dependent, like needed for your electric fucking cars? Ah. All right, we're all going to have to walk. Back to the horse and buggy, everyone. This is that point where socialist, communist, left wing sort of people, as we would think of them right now, eventually get to a point where they start eating themselves. I'm watching it happen now. I'm like, oh, you're about to take a bite out of your own foot, and this is going to be great to watch. Peter Rouse said Jacinta closed down aluminium production in New Zealand. There you go. And also said there is new battery using aluminium and is far better than lithium. I find that amusing considering what I just said about aluminium as well. So let's see where all this goes. Let's see. I'm willing to walk this path and see where you end, where it all ends up. All right, let's continue on. Forge forward. Long lines for food banks have become the norm in Italy. So dozens of hungry Italians lined up at food banks in Milan yesterday to collect bread and milk. This is on top of, I can think of off the top of my head. I've seen reports of this in Germany. I've seen reports of this in Canada. I've seen reports of this in the US. I've seen reports of this in the UK. These food banks are being apparently swamped, or there's been a marked increase in both the utilization and a decrease in how much people are donating to food banks. Peter Rouse, what email to send articles to? As in to me? Send them to me. You can send them through to ragnarok.survival@protonmail.com. Ragnarok.survival as it's spelled RAGNAROK.survival@protonmail.com. And I really appreciate people sending stuff in through me. I don't always get to everything that people send to me. Sometimes there's other stuff going on and I just don't see them, but please send stuff through to me. I love to keep informed and abreast of what's going on in the world. And especially if it's different perspectives and angles as well. Love being proved wrong. I really do. Especially when it's doom and gloom shit. I love being proved wrong on doom and gloom stuff. Like, whew, yes, that's another bullet we don't have to take. Kieran says, yep, it's where Mad Max meets Lord of the Flies. Not sure what that's in perspective too, but... okay, jump over to the US now. Fires at the biggest US Midwest refinery threatens fuel supplies. So this is one of the largest Midwestern fuel suppliers, and it pumps out something like 435,000 barrels a day in Indiana. This is going out. We're talking about we're talking about petrol. We're talking about diesel. We're talking about jet fuel. We're talking about things that go directly to farmers in order for farmers to, move their tractors around. This is pretty huge. And to be honest, I've seen this on 3 separate kind of alternative news sources and on 0 actual news sources. I'm sure it's going to land on bigger news sources today, but it's just a weird thing. I'm like, man, that's huge. That's huge. Puerto Ricans continue to protest against the country's constant power outages. Again, watch that space. This is becoming more and more prolific. I think this is something that we're going to see more across the world. Protests. If you live in a city, this is something that you need to really consider. In fact, my recommendation is often just move out of the city. Get out of the cities if you can. But if you do operate, work around cities, as I do, although my city that I live near is notoriously peaceful. But this is still something you need to keep your eye out on. This is something I'll keep my eye out on. We're going to see more protests. We're going to see more civil unrest. We're going to see more violence within our societies in the coming days, weeks, months, and years to come. That's my belief, but it is playing out what we see in the media at the moment. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there because I have to go get myself ready to teach people how to survive in war zones and in civil unrest situations as well by staring at my computer all day. Fun. I hope you're doing well today. I definitely got in the garden and did some planting yesterday, so that pleased me quite a bit. So hopefully some spring. Coming into spring. I'm in the wrong hemisphere. Spring crops will be popping up very, very soon. This weather can stay okay. Get out there, get into the garden as per usual. Keep prepping, guys. Keep stockpiling that food. Just build up that little bit of resilience. It's all about becoming self-reliant human beings. That's what I'm all about. Peter Rao says, time to build another greenhouse. Will not disagree with you there. I'm considering doing it. I know I'm going to move from this house within 6 to 12 months. I'm like, do I build the greenhouse here? Do I wait till I get into the new place? Maybe, yes. I'll build one that I can take down. But absolutely. So I hope you're all staying safe out there. Keep prepping. And until next time, gang, thank you very much for the comments. Keep messages coming. Keep questions coming. And Semper Paratus.